Hello guys, we are in week 4 of the winter of wellness for weight loss, and today I'm talking about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is switching out toxic positivity or body negativity that is clowning around like it's body positivity and replacing it with some body productivity and health proactivity by debunking the 4 biggest reality IQ weight loss myths. Come on in. Hi! Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so excited. I missed last week because I was so sick. Last week we got so incredibly ill from something we ate here in beautiful, beautiful Mexico. So my lesson of last week was, when you come up against any kind of obstacle in your health journey, which is going to happen necessarily because that's how life works, it's not about the fact that you had this obstacle. It really is about how you look forward and how you plan on dealing with it or getting back on track. Okay, so what I did was released a whole bunch of new topics that we're going to be covering in the Winter for Wellness, which gives you the opportunity to look forward and get really productive and proactively think about the future, right? So this is something that's near and dear to my heart, this topic, because I am and always have been super invested in personal growth, right? And they kind of I love this day and age that we're living in right now, because we're so invested in personal growth. But I've found that, the past decade or more, even almost 2 decades of information on personal growth, especially in the spiritual sphere, has really focused on positivity, and that is not always productive. That is not always a positive. And there's a lot of things that can happen psychologically, that we can kind of play tricks on ourselves and use these kind of positive teachings to actually be kind of really negative, which taking away from the quality of our lives. So the thing that I'm talking about today is some of the rhetoric that has been adopted by people who are talking about the body positive movement or the health at every size movement. So just a disclaimer, I'm in love with these movements. I mean, I am totally a feminist and understand completely where they're coming from, and both of these movements can be absolutely integrated with weight loss and with a weight loss journey. What I don't like is people saying that that's not possible and making weight loss something that is bad. So I wanted to go through some of the reality IQ deficiency, which I talked about last week. So if you don't know what reality IQ deficiency is, you really need to go back to last week and hear that, because it's a whole thing in and of itself, right? So we're growing upon our lessons this week and what we learned last week. So I'm discussing some of the biggest myths, the biggest weight loss myths that people, individuals, have claimed as part of the body positive movement that are actually really negative. Okay, so first off, this isn't one of the weight loss myths, but I just want to say it plain and clearly. It is okay to want to lose weight. And the reason I'm doing this winter of wellness for weight loss specifically is because I had been because I agree so much and I support the body positive movement so much that I had actually been shamed into silence about teaching weight loss. There is nothing positive about shaming people's desires to be in a better body. And there is no pretending that shaming someone for wanting to change their body isn't akin to shaming someone because they can't. To me, body positivity has to actually be rooted in fundamental self-love, or that it's not positive. And I thought it was really, really important to do this video specifically because people that are suffering from a reality IQ deficiency syndrome, when they use a social justice movement, which is what body positivity and health at every size is, when they use a social justice movement to create their reality IQ divots, it can be absolutely detrimental. And that's why even somebody like me would be carrying around shame and being silenced into not speaking about very healthy, super positive things because of these reality IQ divots that people with a deficiency syndrome are spewing out. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the 4 biggest weight loss myths and debunk them for being reality IQ deficiency syndrome jabs. Ready? Number 1, genetics are to blame for obesity. So if you don't have any control over being overweight, then discriminating against someone on the basis of their weight is the same as discriminating against someone for the color of their skin or their sexuality. Okay, hold the phone. First off, those two things are not the same whatsoever. Not only because I'm going to debunk this as a myth, but also because the flag, the incredibly harmful, terrible flag that overweight people get, there's no comparison to people that are racial minorities or, you know, the LGBTQ plus community has to deal with. There's no comparison. But also, you know, this is a reality IQ deficiency because it puts the person in a state of not being responsible for what is actually going on in their body. And the truth is that it's actually epigenetics that play the largest role, and the mind-body connection in whether we're overweight or in our, you know, natural ideal body composition or underweight, etc. So that isn't to say that this is a choice, because what epigenetics actually are is your DNA in relationship to your environment. And it isn't just your relationship with your environment today, it is very dynamic and always changing, and you have influence over it, absolutely. But it has a lot to do with how your genetics and your environment as a child were shaped. You can also inherit all kinds of behaviors, ways of thinking, mindset, heart set, soul set, body set from your family. So the argument around things that you have inherited being causal to you being overweight, that is totally sound. Like, yes, hello, you know, this shaming that being overweight is your fault, that is wrong. And that is, you know, body positivity and the health at every size movements are trying to like fight against that. That is wrong. Like, it's not your fault if you're overweight most of the time, like almost all the time, pretty much all of the time, unless you have this information and you're ignoring it. But it is something that you can take responsibility for, which is something that somebody with an RIQD, capital D, does not want to do. So the very first step, remember I taught this last week, and if you haven't watched that video, go and do it, because the most important thing that you need to do in order to get into your ideal body composition and stay there sustainably is explained in that video, which is touching base with base reality. You need to know what is actually going on. And the science says to us that things like your stress hormone, cortisol, that plays a huge role in whether you are carrying extra fat or not. Your fight or flight responses, the way that your nervous system is set up, that plays an enormous role in not only your digestion, but your hunger hormones, etc. The nervous system also sets up the environment for your microbiota, which they're finding is like very, very closely linked to body composition. One of the epigenetic markers for being overweight, FTO, has shown to be positively correlated with people having more ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. But guess what? Ghrelin is also produced by the enteric nervous system. And adiponectin, the fat burning hormone, increased by 20% when people practice yoga for a year. So listen guys, epigenetics plays the largest role in your body composition and your mind-body connection. Managing your stress on a consistent basis is key to getting a handle on those epigenetic markers and turning your epigenetic switch to lean. Body positive myth number 2. You can be healthy at any size. So the truth is, weight is not an indication of health. And Dr. Deb Burgard, one of the founders of the Health at Every Size movement, actually says that the Health at Every Size is a really useful acronym, but it should actually be health for all sizes. Because the core message behind it is that people of every size deserve care and respect. And the RIQD myth number 3. Being thin means you're either starving or you're photoshopped. The truth is, there aren't even that many supermodels that even go on diets. And eating fewer calories is actually it's one of the most positively correlated causal connections to longevity. So we're talking health, not deprivation. Now, there are outliers in any industry where a focus on how you look and your body composition is intense, and they develop eating disorders. But the majority of these svelte creatures don't even diet. And reality IQ deficiency myth number 4 is overweight is your body's desire. There's all of this rhetoric zooming around that speaks to this storyline where we are, generally speaking, throughout evolution, being in a feast and famine type environment. So when we're feasting, our body wants to hold on to these fat particles in order to protect against starvation in the famine stage. Now, this sounds totally believable, right? Well, when we look at reality, making contact again with base reality, RIQ 0, we can look around us and see that animals and children, and even us in the past, don't tend to carry that much extra weight. In fact, the obesity epidemic hasn't even been on the radar of scientists until the 1990s. So there is no war with yourself. You do not have to deprive yourself or have self-discipline to go against your metabolism. Your body isn't trying to make you fat. You have an ideal body composition that is unique to you, and getting in touch with your ideal body nature is the path towards it. So I am so glad that you guys tuned in again this week. I have so much love and respect for all of you who are actually invested in making these kinds of changes for yourself. And I just want to give you the biggest kudos and the biggest hug and the biggest long distance love up, because you're the kind of people who are going to grow and develop and become the most amazing versions of you that you possibly can be. It's starting to rain. I can't wait to see you guys next week when we get into the heart set district of the winter for wellness. Ta-ta for now, guys. Mwah.